Blackhead, the town's attorney, is going to address the concern that was brought up last month about the board's conflict of interest or potential there, so.
Hello everyone, my name is Hal Rapplier. I am the attorney for the town. I've been in this position for about 18 years. I represent 12 other towns in Columbia and Greene County, and I've been doing that also for 30 years. I've run into this issue quite a bit actually. People bring it up quite often, and I've done the research on it several times. I can tell you just from a minimum standpoint, conflicts of interest for municipality and municipal employees, there basically runs in two directions. The first is you can't be your own boss. So it'd be like somebody on the town board also being the code enforcement officer. You can't do that, obviously, because you're going to be reviewing your own decisions. The other one is if you have a direct financial interest in the application or the outcome of it. And in this case, merely because board members are residents in the town, which they are for every single one of these applications, that just doesn't reach that threshold of creating a direct financial interest. So my opinion is, and recommendation of the board, that there are no conflicts of interest with respect to this application. And if we had followed that, that line of thinking, they would be recused for every single application. Because potentially, exponentially, somewhere out there, there would be a tax impact. And so that just isn't going to happen in this case or any other case. So if they had a direct impact, if they were a member of the family, or if they were going to get work at that location, then that'd be a different story. But the fact that somebody worked there 20 years ago, no. The fact that taxes may go up or may go down, no, that's not a conflict of interest either. So the best thing I can come up with, nearest thing, is a case out of Ithaca. And that's also in our appellate division area. So it goes, if there's a county decision and then it gets appealed up to the appellate division, Ithaca is still in our appellate division area, third appellate division. And the third department has said that in Ithaca, the Cornell University came before the town planning board and said, we're going to be doing some improvements and adding a bunch of buildings to our university. And there were 3 board members that worked at Cornell University. And they all said, we work there, but just because we work there, we have no interest, we're not gonna get any money out of this thing. And the court said, even in that situation, because they all talked about it, everybody said there was no conflict, that's good enough. There's no conflict of interest, even in that sort of real close situation. So that's the best analogy that I could come up with in this situation. So again, my opinion is that there is no conflict of interest by anybody on the board.
Thank you, Tal. All right, we're gonna open the public hearing for Blackhead tonight. The first person I have is Jackie. I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher people's last names.
Dinan.
Dinan.
Yes. Is it okay if I speak here? I have a.
Yep, would you like a microphone?
If you can all hear me.
Actually, if you would go up, that'd be great, because I'm recording, and it'd be great for other people to see this.
Okay. So, hello, planning board members. I'm Jackie Dinan. My husband and I purchased a home on Heart's Content Road in 1999. And even though Heart's Content Road, I've noticed, hasn't been included in any of these traffic studies, we both felt it important to express our concerns and enter them in the public record, because Heart's Content Road is the preferred shortcut from any point south traveling to County Road, or Greene County Route 31, and then continuing on to the Blackhead Resort properties. So again, I'd like my comments entered in the record, and again, I wrote a letter to the planning board members. I made copies. If anybody's interested in a copy of my letter on your way out, feel free to stop by and take a letter. So it just so happened that my theme and the topic of my letter is conflict of interest, which was brought up last at the last meeting, and I think I wanted to preface that by saying, don't worry, I don't know anybody on this board, and I assume and trust that they are approaching this in a neutral way and in a very studied way, a measured way. So my focus on the conflicts of interest are not those of the particular board members, but the conflicts of interest that they are facing as board members. Specifically, the fundamental conflict between maximizing profits and safeguarding public goods. And when I say public goods, I mean unpolluted water, safe roads, and clean air. So when we talk about resorts, Greene County resorts of the past were family owned and operated. They stayed in the same hands for decades. They were a source of pride for their families and communities. This mega resort proposed by Mr. Courtmanche is nothing like that model in function, scale, and financial structure. It is owned and will be operated by private equity investors and corporate owners whose priority is always to maximize shareholder value, period. This priority always conflicts and takes a backseat to protecting a community's public goods because cost-cutting measures ride roughshod over environmental regulations, hitting corporate projections prevails over signals of environmental stress, and accountability is scattered. Because accountability is scattered, this permits and code enforcements can easily fall through the cracks. Your decision can't be a judgment call on whether the parties involved can be trusted. Rather, you must assess this project's viability, keeping in mind to what extent the applicant's incentives and goals are aligned or misaligned with the interests of your town. It's pretty basic. The more aligned your interest, the fewer the conflicts of interest. The less aligned, the greater the conflicts of interest. So I say the applicant's conflict of interest because after reviewing and reading all of the submitted materials, I believe that it's applicants plural. There's really a coalition of applicants made up of 3 parties in this process: the Massman family, KIRC consultants, and Henry Courtmanche. So I'll first take up the Massman family. For decades, the best interests of the Massmans aligned with those of the town, at least most of the time. The family business prospered and kept profits in the community. That was an outcome and a process that served the larger public. Then changes happened. They allowed their SPEDIS permit to lapse, which signals a cost-cutting decision. They held off a foreclosure notice from New York Business Development Corporation, and COVID in 20 and 21 decimated their restaurant business. They sold their business in 2023 to a limited liability corporation known as RCBG JV Manager with 1 employee, Henry Courtmanche. Although holding a clear title to the property, Courtmanche still owes the family 51% of the sales price, structured as a $1.2 million private mortgage between the 2 parties. The full terms of this agreement is unknown, but it's doubtful that the Massman family had that much cash on hand to lend to RCBG JV Manager. And why would they need to if he was buying the property? Instead, they essentially accepted an IOU from Courtmanche, who will make good on his IOU if and when the planning board approves his development. It's an arrangement allowing Courtmanche to back out of the deal at any time. From this perspective, it's understandable why the family would throw their support behind him for a quick approval. The faster the planning board approves the project, the faster the Massmans are paid in full. The second interested party in this coalition of applicants is Kelly Leibold, owner of KARC. Her interests are clearly aligned with her client, and you would assume this because she's representing him in his interests. She wants to minimize costs and secure quick approvals. Examples of this include the well monitoring program that she approved relied on the quickest and cheapest method available, public maps and certified letters, instead of trying to maximize participation in the well monitoring program, which would have taken more time and more costly efforts of door knocking and follow-up visits. Her assertion, or the consultant's assertion, that the proposed construction will disturb only 19% of the entire parcel, which clearly conflicts with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's calculation that 71.5% of the parcel will be disturbed. And the final example I'll give is no hydrologist has yet been hired to participate in any of their studies. Their estimate of water usage intentionally omits temporary conditions of construction, irrigation, and water treatment uses to minimize potential negative environmental impacts, even though these temporary conditions will last 5, 7, 10 or more years. I don't know about you, but I don't see 5, 7, or 10 years as temporary. They might not be permanent, but they're certainly long-term, and they should be included. The services of a hydrologist, however, would have added expense and delays to the process. But Leibold's interests are intensified with her client because she owns a second business, Eastern Construction Materials, that sells, wait for it, erosion and sediment control materials, as well as stormwater, water supply, and sanitary sewer system materials. Precisely the construction materials Courtmanche will need in substantial amounts should the project be approved. It stands to reason that she and Courtmanche already have a memorandum of understanding that Eastern Construction Materials will supply the construction phase of his mega resort. In other words, as Courtmanche's project grows, Leibold's profits also grow, and steadily for years. The final party that I want to talk about in this coalition of applicants is RCBG JV Manager LLC, otherwise known as Henry Courtmanche. A quick Google search of Google and social media confirmed that all of his projects have been bankrolled by private equity firms. Courtmanche takes no personal risk in any of his developments. His self-described passion for hospitality and pursuit of luxury brand partners treats environmental sustainability as a marketing tool, because building structures that genuinely reduce their impact to the environment costs too much money and takes too much time. For example, he initially wanted the construction schedule to run 24 hours, 7 days a week for 26 months, with heavy machinery, blaring lights, explosives, as needed. They only reduced these hours because of noise regulations, not any concern about the disruption to wildlife, their habitat, and the corridors. He plans to install water supply and waste systems that use traditional chemical treatments and methods instead of gray water systems that are more costly to install and operate. He deflects accountability for securing all necessary permits to an unnamed contractor. He refuses to identify his waiting in the wings luxury brand partner because this industry is dominated by private equity firms and global companies that focus on quick returns and profit maximization. He knows their structures are rigged to drive profits upward, out of the community, and out of the United States. Exactly the opposite of what the Mossman family strive for. RCBG JV Manager operates out of California. Vita Master Planning and Design operates out of Costa Rica. Six Senses operates out of Bangkok, Thailand. And its parent company, Intercontinental Hotels Group, is based outside of London, England. In conclusion, The most important stakeholders in this project are the neighbors, the planning board's neighbors. Not a woman from Dutchess County looking to expand her business. Not a West Coast speculator carrying high interest loans. Not the executives of a global conglomerate looking to increase shareholder value and their compensation packages. Don't let nostalgia for the resorts of the good old days, reverence for the Mossman family, or some pie-in-the-sky sales pitch distract you from the dozens of red flags signaling adverse effects to the environment in this private equity project will create. You need information from studies and experts whose interests align with yours. Hiring Lamont engineers was a good start, and you can do more. For commission and an engineering report from a certified hydrogeologist. You can make Portmont pay for that report. And if he balks, well, that's one more red flag waving in front of you. I urge you to prove yourself informed, conscientious stewards of the town of Cairo's public goods. Take the time needed to proceed with due diligence. Vote to issue a positive declaration. Thank you.
In time, there's a list, you have to wait your turn. Ray Horton?
Well, my wife just finished off for me. I was gonna yield my time, but I don't have any time to yield, so thank you.
Thank you, Ray. May Spur?
Thank you very much. I think by this point in time, you all know who I am since we've all been sitting here since February. I basically want to address the planning board. I spent a lot of time this afternoon reading through Cairo town law. This is a very interesting document. I did glance over it when all this was first starting to happen. This is the site plan review law. It's dated July 21st, 2010. And there is so much in this document that if I had the time and the energy to do it, I would love to give all of you a written exam to see how much of this you know and you understand. And based on what I have learned from it, I have to say, you're not doing your job to represent the best interests of the town of Cairo. So my best recommendation and request to all of you is, can we stop all this right now until you, as a planning board, have a workshop session, go over this document, and have your town attorney ask you all the questions that need to be asked to be sure that you understand what you are accountable for. Because I'm tired of sitting here. I'm tired of being abused. I'm tired of being disrespected by members of this board. I'm tired of not being taken seriously. And it's about time that the residents who are gonna suffer the most were heard and we were responded to by you people who are appointed to protect our properties, our life, and our community. So that's it.
John Powell?
I've been an environmental instructor at the college level for a number of years. I've retired. I'm fine right here, thank you. I think everybody can hear me. I need to know, we all need an answer, why something with this scope, something that has the amount of water drawn off, the scope of the amount of material movement, storm mitigation, the sewer going into a stream. Why is there not going to be a wide-scale environmental impact statement going into this. I don't understand when I see smaller projects, much smaller projects, covering a smaller footprint than this is, have to jump through multiple more hoops than you guys are even trying to do. And you guys on the board are the ones that's supposed to be able to make these people do that. I don't get it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, John. Mark, Brady?
That's a hard act to follow. My main concern is water. I've been here since 1986. I live about 3/4 of a mile from the post resort. I noticed while they were drilling the wells, I was getting a considerable amount of very fine gray silt in my water, something I've never seen before. Also, strong smell of sulfur on and off. Again, something I have never seen before. I've been, like I said, I've been here since '86. My main concern is when they start pulling water out of their wells, I understand they're pretty deep. Mine is as well. How is that going to affect the water table? I'm not the only one in the area that's had this problem. As a matter of fact, my whole house filter is useless anymore. You have to change the cartridge about once every 3 days. No sense in even bothering with it. That's about it. It's water. Also the effluent system, like John mentioned. Where are they going to dump this? How are they going to do it? I'd like to see a complete breakdown on that. That's about it.
Thank you, Mark. Stephen Petronio?
Hey everybody, nice to see you again. My first question is simple. Given the unprecedented scale of this project resulting in the ongoing requests of Round Top citizens and bolstered by the support of advocacy groups like the Sierra Club, Scenic Hudson, and the Mountain Keepers, why wouldn't the members of the planning board make a positive declaration to ensure that such a pivotal project is executed properly? If there was a positive declaration made, a group of professionals qualified to make environmental and social impact assessments would be executing the kind of analysis that the planning board and concerned citizens of Cairo Round Top simply can't do. I believe that a positive declaration of this project will only demonstrate the responsibility to and the care for the community in relationship to proper development. If there is some unforeseen negative impact of this project, wouldn't the planning board want to feel certain that they took the maximum steps to ensure its success? A positive declaration will trip a level of scrutiny that will prove undoubtedly that this was a well-vetted project. Maybe it's more expensive, but the profits from such a venture are so humongous, why wouldn't you want to be inscrutable beyond the shadow of a doubt? Because of the enormous amount of money involved in this project and potential windfall of taxes to the town, whether exaggerated or not, it would seem that it would be very easy for the board to overlook some of the environmental scrutiny and community impact concerns that a pause deck would help ensure while minimizing any semblance of that perception. Many of us have already heard that this project was moving forward regardless of any concerns, even before this process started, and I hear it over and over again. So I ask the board, are there particular, and I would love to hear what you have to say. So I ask the board, are there particular reasons that you wouldn't want good faith for the community and for your own satisfaction? So yeah, I mean, is there any reason that you would feel that, I know that we discussed last month that there's never been a pause deck, but there's never been a project this big. Is there any particular reason why that's something that you don't want to pursue?
no point has the board said they're going one way or the other. We're working through the process.
Yeah, okay. I've heard other things, but, so I want to reiterate on record that the inappropriateness of a lawyer working for the developer, John First Esquire, daring to intervene in a public meeting and slapping down a citizen and resident of this community in the process of trying to understand and discuss exactly what's going on here. The planning board called for an open community discussion, and this is what it sounds like in Round Top. I mean, whether we like it or not, I don't like coming here every month, I'm sure you don't like hearing me. But this is what an open meeting sounds like, and lawyering up is not the way to proceed here. This is what the process is for by the board's own admission. So I believe an apology from John First is due to the town of, to the hamlet of Round Top, particularly to Jen. I want to report that I've complied with the requested well testing, although I have no idea what the findings will be and what the relevance will be to this project when such an enormous amount of groundwater is being taken outside of my well's test window. So I would just ask in your comments from Clark, can you speak to how the data will be used? Once it's gathered, I'm concerned that it will become a fixed, static fact taken out of context when water levels are fluid by use and by season. I mean, right now it's very dry and there's no drilling going on that I know of. And lastly, this is a selfish point. Crow's Nest Road is a short road that is a dead-end cul-de-sac that I live at the end of. It's not far from the proposed service entrance of the new project. In the past, Mossman's guests have wandered up to my property with some regularity. Can the developer alleviate the real fear that my property will be invaded by a significant increase in guest population, and not just me, but the neighbors surrounding this? But also my cul-de-sac, I would not like my cul-de-sac to become a de facto traffic circle. And if it does, it's a traffic circle in the wild, because I'm up against the state line. So that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Patrick, I can't read your last name. Adicson? Sorry about that.
Hi, Patrick Aitchison, 52 Walnut, down the road from the resort. Back in March, it was the first open planning meeting. I submitted a letter, and also spoke at the meeting, asking, among other things, for questions to be answered around the sewer water that's going to be put into the quote-unquote unnamed stream, which runs along my property. The developer since then said they answered all the questions that were asked. However, my questions were never answered. What I don't understand is if this water is being so well treated, why can you not take this water and use it to irrigate water the grounds? Why can you not use it to refill the pools and water features? Why can you not use it? Why can you not use it to flush the toilets again and recirculate it? And again, if you think it is so clean that it's okay to put into the stream that runs on top of my well and my neighbor's wells and goes thus into our groundwater, into our drinking system, and also the stream that eventually goes down into the Shingle Kill, which is a trout stream, and eventually into the Cairo water system. If it is so clean, why can you not then reuse it, this water, in the resort for your water needs? You know, if this is going to be such an environmentally focused resort, why not reuse the water? While I question the calculations of the amount of water that you'll be looking to get rid of, you are saying 37,000 gallons a day. Right now, this week, this month, these last couple months, the stream has been essentially dry, which means basically the only water that would be flowing would be this 37,000 gallons of treated sewer water from the resort. So that doesn't make me feel good. And then, yeah, I think that's, I mean, my key thing is this whole water usage, why are we not coming up with a better plan for it? Oh, and so you have you're planning this wastewater treatment plant, which I don't think we really have real detailed specifications for. I know there was someone who presented a little bit ago in a more general way. But if this system fails, is there going to be an emergency storage tank to capture the water so that we're not getting 37,000 gallons a day of untreated sewage into the street? There should be some sort of emergency system to capture. And as far as I can tell, I have not seen anything in the plans for a emergency storage tank of any kind of capacity to immediately capture this. So, and then I echo the other concerns here. I don't understand why all these months in, the planning board has not yet issued, a positive, secret declaration. I don't understand. Why not just do it so we go and move forward? And if we can find a way to make this project work, fine. I like development, but it has to be within scale and it's got to work for our neighbors, our community. So yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you, Patrick. Mary Casella?
First, going to the first issue that Mr. Repellier mentioned, this is a small town, and let's face it, in a town like this, everybody is either knows somebody, or they're related, or they did business. It's like the railroad I worked on, where everybody was either an in-law, an outlaw, cousins, whatever, and you could even work there 20 years and with people and find out that the three of you were related and none of you had any idea. So looking at that, I expect the board to do their own due diligence. I agree with what Mr. Repellier had to say. At the same time though, we have collectively, all of us here, all of us who have any stake in Cairo, in Round Top, we all have a stake in what we leave here for future generations. The question is, do we want to leave a town and an environment as it is with clean water, clean air, or do we want to sell it to the highest bidder? In light of that, the best way to make sure that due diligence is done and that we have all contributed to making it the same or better for the following generations here is to declare the positive SECRA and to get that environmental impact statement.
Thank you, Mary. Mary Finneran?
You get me twice tonight.
I think it's all very nice. Is it on? No. Is it on now? I'm not just still I
I just, we really need a positive declaration is what, I'm sorry. Jackie said, about 19% versus 71% impact. 71% on anything, basically 10 acres, pretty much entails a positive declaration. A couple of things, the effluent going into a protected trout stream. That's enough to ask for a positive declaration. Wastewater treatment plants typically contain PFAS because of the cleaning materials and everything else. The carpets, everything that would have PFAS in it would go into the water. And Fish and Wildlife Eagle takings law, there's eagles up there. There's nobody who's gonna say there's not eagles up there, and you do have to go through that. And I do think that that is part of the secret and part of the positive declaration. The road erosion on the roads, that's environmental impact, part of secret, needs a positive declaration. Even at an acceptable scale that we would prefer, like maybe a quarter the size of what you're planning, maybe less, I don't know, it would still entail a positive declaration. This is a huge project. I know you guys usually don't get such enormous projects. And it's pretty much mandatory. It is pretty much a moral obligation to do a positive declaration. And I asked before, where is this sludge gonna go from the wastewater treatment plant? That's a question, and I don't know if anybody's gonna answer that, but that's a serious concern too, because sludge is what comes out after they do all the filtration. It's the nastiest of the nasty. Make sure it doesn't go on the land that's fertilizer. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you, Mary.
One last thing. And not a threat, basically a promise. If you do not declare a positive declaration, you will be having an Article 78 lawsuit thrown at you. You will, so I'm not being honest, that's true.
Richard Royer.
Yes, you know, it's funny, I actually signed the wrong piece of paper.
Well, you're stuck now.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk about the first order of business, because I'm buying, one of the lots that are being subdivided. I had my questions answered elsewhere, but as a new resident, in Cairo, this is really fascinating. I don't know much about this, and I'm really interested in following this along and seeing how my new town planners prioritize its environment and its locals over outside investors, developers, and potential tourists. So, well, thank you, and I'll keep my eye on this. I'm also, I work in code enforcement in a different town, so I have similar questions about where the DEC is with all of this, and have we got positive seeker declarations. It's really interesting. Everyone's saying that this is a small town that hasn't gotten big projects, but there are much smaller towns that go through this process. And yeah, it's really fascinating and really interesting following along. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you, Richard. Sandra Landron.
Sandra. My husband and I live in Round Top on Jones Road. We love it here, like everybody. I should have been procrastinating since February to come and participate sort of more vocally because my extended family is very good friends with the Mossman family. We know them to be great people who've always acted in good faith. And so I wanted to be really thoughtful about how I participated and sort of watch the process and see if hopefully somebody else would bring up what I wanted to talk about so then I wouldn't have to, which would have been awesome. Of course, today is when that happened, so technically I probably didn't need to come. However, that being said, there's still more to add to the story of private equity. As I was researching the project, like I said, since February, and because I was sort of looking for a way out of talking, I started with, okay, well, who's this guy? And so I looked up Courtmanche, as many of us have. Then I looked at his past projects, his past partners in those projects, their past projects, their interactions with various zoning, planning, architectural review boards. And ultimately, what I found was that there was a lot there. And I apologize in advance, guys, for the 90+ exhibits that are attached to the letter you're gonna get tomorrow. But my point in collecting it all and sort of categorizing it and summarizing it in a spreadsheet that you can sort in the native file I'll send you tomorrow, was to see if there's a pattern of a business model, which, as others have commented today, in fact, there is. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with it. In my professional career, I was a lawyer for many, many years. I investigated and prosecuted violations of the securities laws, securities fraud, investor abuse, market manipulation, all and sundry. So I'm decent at finding my way around documents, and I'm pretty decent at finding who maybe doesn't want to be known as an associate of a particular company or not. Anyway, point being, Courtmanche, 26-year-old guy. On his website, he says he's a hotel developer. Prior to that, according to his LinkedIn, he worked at Procore. Anybody in construction knows what Procore is. Courtmanche's father owns Procore. It's a $9.87 billion capitalized public company. Again, nothing wrong with that. His prior professional experience at Procore is impressive. At the age of 15, he was a project development representative. He was a high school student, but that is some of his professional background. God bless. And then since then, after Procore, is when he became a real estate developer, according to his website, his LinkedIn, and every other public record I could find. He's completed 4 projects to date. One is, it started out as a 2-room hotel. Currently was finally approved with all sorts of coastal variances, etc., in California, and now it's an open-air bar. Awesome. It's called Funk Zone. I would definitely check it out. And then there's 3 hotels. The commonality among all 4 of these projects is that, in fact, they were never owned or purchased by Courtmanche. They were owned, purchased, funded, managed, sold when needed to be by a company called Eastern Real Estate.
Called what?
Eastern Real Estate. Eastern Real Estate got its infamy for great reason. They are amazing real estate developers. In 1994, they bought a property in Lowell, Massachusetts for $525,000. 4 years later, sold it for $101 million. It is literally known as one of the greatest real estate deals in history for good reason. And there's nothing wrong with that either. How did they achieve that kind of return in a short amount of time? According to their website, it's an attachment, you're welcome. Through pursuing tax incentives and increasing operational efficiency. Perhaps some of us may realize recently when we go to the doctors, or if we go to the PT, or even if, God forbid, we have to go to the hospital, it seems like there are fewer owners of more of those practices. If you work in healthcare, I apologize, because it seems as though there's a lot more bureaucracy or red tape, and sometimes it's great. I love the patient portal, who doesn't? But unfortunately, the studies have shown pretty consistently that the operational efficiencies typically result in lost jobs, and worse yet, impact to patient care and outcomes. That's not to say that's what this is. Private equity in healthcare, that's what that looks like. Private equity in, industrial space looks like something else. Private equity in hotel developments, multi-residential unit buildings / multi-mixed use retail spaces are an intention to diversify assets, to shelter taxable income, not illegally, but that's what it's used for. And the sort of parade of transactions that I have summarized in this spreadsheet, and that will be sort of further detailed in the letter you guys get tomorrow, is just to say that we have a roadmap for what this looks like. That's not to say that it shouldn't be approved eventually. However, because of the nature of the proposed project and the scale of the proposed project and the finite nature of our beloved local resources, coupled with sort of this amorphous corporate / investment-based purchaser, buyer, operator, it just seems like all the more reason to follow the process, make that positive declaration, let them provide us with that draft environmental impact statement, which, by the way, and then I'll be done, because much of what I said, had to say has been said already, thank goodness. But I found this so interesting. Oh, I know. Here's my little sales pitch. The positive declaration equals an environmental impact statement. That is the only path to an actual mutual result. In other words, it says actually in our, what is it called? SPRL. What does that stand for? SPRL. Town of Cairo, something. Thank you very much. This is what it says, and then I'll be finished, of course. It says that the purpose is to ensure optimum overall conservation, preservation, development, and use through the specific process that the board must follow to carefully weigh the specific circumstances of each application. In this instance, the nature of the buyer, owner, operator is a relevant factor to be considered when you're determining whether or not to do whatever it is you're going to do next. And then finally it says, and it's the board's obligation to strive for development solutions that promote development and protect and enhance our town. So the EIS will get us there, right? It's going to get us there faster than whatever comes next if there isn't a positive declaration. But that being said, totally support a project after the EIS, after the thoughtful, meaningful, detailed, thorough process is followed and the application is put through its paces. So, thanks.
Thank you. Jen?
I'll sit here. Is this on? No.
I got it on.
It doesn't sound amplified. No.
It's on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Okay. So, Paul, thanks for being here. I personally understand the, in terms of conflict of interest that, it doesn't make sense for, I can understand why it doesn't make sense for anyone on this board to recuse themselves from, participating in the review process. I'm curious though, what responsibility do anyone who speaks during this process, whether it's the public or consultants or the consultant's attorney, what what do they have to disclose, if anything, about any potential conflicts of interest?
I guess I don't understand your question.
So if someone from the public
Yes.
makes comments and they are, let's say, in support of this project, and they have a financial conflict of interest that they have not disclosed, is that a problem or not?
I don't believe that it is, because they don't have any decision-making powers. People have the right to have an opinion, either against or in favor. People have the right to conduct their business, whether it's against or in favor of the project. They don't have any impact on the decision other than the information that they provide to the board. And so the board, since it does not have conflict of interest, will parse through all of those items and make sure that the right decision is made.
Thank you. And so people have a right, of course, to,
Absolutely.
support their business, but what if they aren't disclosing? What if they're basically saying, we have no business in this, but they actually do? Is that a problem?
Again, they don't have any decision-making powers, so.
So how does the
essentially
board,
irrelevant.
how does the board discern that, though?
By having actual information come to us. The decision is not gonna be based on opinions, it's gonna be based upon the science and things that we have that are tangible. Things that Doug has dug into for months and months and done a ton of research on. And so it's gonna be based on those tangible things, not just somebody's opinion.
That's great, thank you, and that's a great segue. As these guys know, I work in science. I'm a journalist at Scientific American. I literally, all I do is investigate and report on complex science, and I work with experts all over the world, not just journalists. So I really have always led from a point of what is the evidence, what does the science say, and I continue to observe with every application update that comes in that it's incredibly fraught, and I agree. It's wonderful that we have Doug, but the scale of this is, and I'll just quickly echo what everyone else has said. I don't know, it's great to have a consultant be able to review this, but all of you, you're making decisions based on an incredible complexity of science that I don't understand. And when I don't understand something, I have to ask lots of independent experts to explain it to me. And even when one scientist publishes their results and it's peer reviewed by other experts, I still go to independent researchers in the same field who don't have a conflict of interest and weren't working on that project to say, what are your thoughts on this? And that's what needs to be done here. So I'm going to tell you again why, and you cannot take the consultants at their word. And I would hate to see that done here, and that, in my opinion, and probably in Article 78 opinion, this is not doing your due diligence. And here's an example of how I feel that, how I think their answers have been misleading at best and deceitful at times. Last week, I was accused by their attorney for not being satisfied with the answers that they have provided, but that they have provided answers to every question. Now, I had some people say, why don't you make a list of all the questions that you have asked and submitted on public comment that have not been answered? And I have 43 of them, which I will send to you. These are specific questions, such as, your report references a breakdown of, types of structures on this resort plan to estimate water demand. I don't see that study anywhere in this file. Please provide it. Crickets. And I found it astounding that the attorney would get up and make such statements, which I think if all of you were reviewing things closely, and maybe you are, you already know that was a lie, that they have provided answers to our questions. I'll say one thing. Thank you for updating the EAF and saying that traffic is, in fact, going to be substantially, there's the potential for it to be substantially higher. But there was a lot of commentary around making that decision. They said that the DEC's workbook for filling out the EAF provides guidance for determining the significance when it comes to traffic increases. We all know about the workbook. And the guidance assumes that a project that generates fewer than 100 peak hour vehicle trips per day will not result in any significant increases in traffic. They then posted a screenshot from the EAF website, and they highlighted that, that says, this table assumes that a project generating fewer than 100 peak hour vehicle trips per day will not result in a significant increase in traffic. What they didn't take a screenshot of in PACE is the actual table that's referencing. Right below the text that they included, it says, instead of a traffic study, use the table below to determine if your project is likely to have significant increase in traffic. So there's a whole bunch of land uses under there, a bank, a school, whatever, and there's a hotel. And it says, if there are more than 250 bedrooms, then yes, the answer is just yes, you don't need to do a traffic study. Now this is like suburban numbers, so you have to imagine that that threshold is way higher than what it would be for a rural community like ours, because there's already a ton of traffic in like a more dense space. So it's more than 250 or more. This proposal has 272 bedrooms. So the answer is yes. And instead of including that in their response to my comment, they're leaving things out to deceive, to manipulate, to misguide you. And as a member of the public who has been doing my part of open government work, and all of us here who have been diligently participating, it's really difficult for us to trust the integrity of this process. And that's not an accusation. It's a feeling of desperation that it literally requires trust. It requires the public to feel a trust in the validity of the review process. And I shouldn't have to be the one bringing this up to say, hey, what they're putting in this comment, on their comments, is incomplete and it's misleading, and they're leaving things out that actually provide the answers. And I wish our planning board would say to them, hey, what you provided isn't right, or it didn't include all the information, and I think that needs to be more on you. And if you could take up that mantle and show us that you're actually following along and not leave it every month for us to have to be this diligent. We are already doing as much as we can, and we ask more of you. And if you don't have the time and the resources and the capacity, which we understand that you don't, this is why you need to make the positive declaration. I want to just finish with a few specific questions, because I think it's really important to understand some things. Doug, I'm curious, so the applicant is not planning to apply for a water withdrawal permit. They've made that clear in their application documents, and I know they've made that clear, they've told the DEC that they were not planning, it wasn't their intent to do that, and they will do it if they have to do it, but they're gonna try to not do it. My question is, do you think their water demand estimates of 46,000 gallons per day, they're saying potable water, right? Well, we all know that a water withdrawal is any type of take, and that was another thing wrong in their comments, by the way. They're trying to say that any water that they're taking that's not potable isn't it's like a non-DEC use, but that's wrong. That's wrong. And I didn't Google that, by the way. I don't go on Google and do these things. I call the hydrologist at the DEC. So before I get into that, I just want to ask, what is your assessment of how realistic their water demand estimates, not just for potable water, but for all water? And given the size and scale and uses of their buildings and everything else, do you guys have any hydrologists or hydrogeologists on your team? And and what are your thoughts so far on what those estimates are, if they're going to be realistic?
We don't have hydrogeologists in our team, our office, no.
And so, do you have any thoughts? Because the water demand has been it's been since April. This has been the 46,000 gallons, and they've responded saying, they added a couple thousand or 1,000 gallons per day for irrigation, and I guess I'm curious what you make of their responses. When we ask, What is the total withdrawal gonna be, not just potable? Which is, I think, you would agree, a valid question. And you see the responses they give, what do you make of them?
I think they're valid in that what the information being provided is assimilated to the project. Using some of the ponds and the existing water courses and the on-site stormwater system. It's a reuse of drainage that comes off the hill. So I think it's valid that it can be met and used without going into the aquifer and causing additional stress on the existing water systems.
But the water withdrawal is not just groundwater from the well, it's also from any water body. So wouldn't drawing water from a pond or detention basin or creek or anything, that's all.
What they provided does not show that they're doing irrigation, sprinkling, and that kind of stuff. So we aren't seeing that kind of withdrawal.
So do you think it's realistic that in a 100-acre property where they show us all these, yeah, and more, all these fancy landscaping renderings, and they're trying to make us feel like they're going to do all this natural habitat, which any of us who live here, who have tried to even, we try to convert like a tiny bit of our lawn into a meadow. It takes we're year 3, a tremendous amount of water to establish native habitat without invasives coming in. Do you think it's realistic that they're not gonna need water for irrigation?
There are other natural means of natural irrigation, agricultural, or the terminologies escaping me tonight, but we have some projects where they're doing irrigational systems using diversion ditches and stormwater systems to manage and to create irrigational positive results.
But have they proposed any of this?
I haven't seen that yet, but the project's been an ongoing project in review.
Okay, so it's
But they are
possible,
possible, and I mean.
Oh, I understand it's
A lot of the
possible.
stormwater practices now do use
Totally.
natural irrigation, so.
It's just that they haven't included it in any of their plans. So it's hypothetically possible, I know that. What I'm saying is with the extensive, plans that they've shown us, it has not been in there. They're saying we're not gonna need to take any water for, so.
No, they're just not saying that, they're just not showing that they are needing to apply that kind of a irrigational system. So using stormwater practices can easily enhance site development, site irrigation, site management. So I'm waiting for the rest of the project to continue to develop, so we can apply everything that's being applied, or they.
So it's all still continuing?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So it's like we're still dealing with an incomplete application that is still being.
No, that's in the extensive detailing that, I don't know if you would call that an incomplete application because of the minutia or the minute details that go into.
Oh, I use incomplete technically in this case. Is the application still incomplete or is it completed? Because once it's complete, then the board can make their
still in
secret
progress.
declaration. Okay, so it's still incomplete. I mean, it's either incomplete or it's complete.
But that's a legal term, so it's kind of hard to answer that, because if it's incomplete, then we can't even have a public hearing.
Well, yes, that is the core issue that this whole thing started. Wait, you should have been here for the first one. Like on March 7th, I was like, why are we having a public hearing with such an incomplete application?
Let me address that though, because so many people have said in the past when we've had, not something this big, we haven't something this big, but so many people in the past have said, we didn't even know that this was happening until you told us about the public hearing, and they've been coming to the board for months, and we could have talked and helped you guys find things and learn things. And so the board decided to open it up early so that people could get involved and could be heard early. And so that's the reason why it's been several months, and we've learned a lot from you, and you've learned a lot from us. And so
shouldn't
How
be
do you-
learning. if
I
you
have
want, you
learned
should be
almost
learning
nothing
yourself.
from anybody here. And I think I also think, the issue that you're talking about of people not knowing that something is going on is one of public outreach. It is not about opening a public hearing, which, as you say, is a legal, issue that goes on a procedural level. And to say that the solution to that is to open up a public hearing prematurely is not the correct answer. There are many modes of outreach to the community.
I disagree with that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. On that note, Joe, would you kindly update us as to the status of the review process? Like, from your perspective, what materials are still outstanding? What are you waiting on from them so that you can deem this a complete application? Like, what is, if you can just tell us, you know, I don't wanna ask you like a super vague question. I wanna make sure I'm asking this specifically, but like, what are the things that you're still waiting on so that you and your board can fill out parts 2 and 3 and like make a determination?
Well, in order for the application to actually be complete, seeker has to be ruled on first. But the process is still in review, and you know, we can get you a list if you want, but I don't have it.
No, I have the list. I mean,
So if you have the answer, why are you asking the question?
because, here's why. If this were following the procedural process as spelled out in Cairo's site plan review law, we would know. Because, yes, I get it, you're not supposed to deem it complete and open a public hearing until you make a secret declaration. But you all have done this backwards. And that's not just me pointing that out. So therefore, it creates a high degree of obscurity. And I'm asking for an update because we have to come here every month and like there was no agenda posted for this one. We have no idea if the next meeting is gonna be the one where you make a declaration. We have no idea where things are at. We're asking for an update. And I think that's relevant because this process is not following the Cairo site plan review law as it is spelled out. Can we have any sort of update as to when, a timeline for what you are still looking for, what they need to provide, what you're hoping to see in order to feel like you are able to make a declaration? And anyone can answer if there are outstanding documents or questions that you have. You can't have it both ways. You can't subvert the legal protocol and then say, hey, it's spelled right out in the legal protocol.
No, we've explained to the public a number of times why we opened the public hearing early. And that was to get the public involved so that everybody can be part of the process and be heard, so that the public hearing lasts more than, you know, if we went by the process, the public hearing wouldn't happen until after there was a secret determination and after the application was complete, and it would only last 1 night.
That's
But-
completely untrue. It can last as long as it needs to. In fact, by opening up too early, you've caused yourselves a lot of pain and you've caused your community a tremendous amount of pain. Because we've had to crawl along with an incomplete dribbles and drabbles. And this whole thing would have been so much better if we could have just sat in and listened to your review process, listened to your questions to them, and then we would have been able to read a complete application, bring all of our questions at once, and the whole thing would have been significantly better. And I do not think that we would have missed out on learning about something. That is not the problem here. So it sounds like we are not going to get an update. Is that correct? Are we not gonna get any sort of update on where your approval process is at?
I feel I've tried to answer the question and you're not happy with the answer.
That is an obfuscation. That's a non-answer. But that's your answer. I'm going to end with water, because this remains the most important thing to me. So I know a lot of you have expressed concerns about whether there will be enough water for the community, right? I mean, I heard you say it. My question is like, what do you think, based on what they've provided to you and based on their plans for monitoring wells, do you think it's sufficient?
I think we need a hydrologist.
You think what?
What? Hello?
I'm sorry, I'm deaf.
We need a hydrologist.
Make a motion, Ted.
Told them that. Where does that happen so that the public can know that that process is occurring?
This is with us talking about it. You know, we haven't gotten to that point yet. We're, got an agreement that we're gonna have a hydrologist.
But they're already testing people's wells.
You had a hydrologist in your firm.
Not in our firm, but we have worked with someone.
No, there's no hydrologist on your team, and I don't know if there's a hydrologist on their team, but I don't think that there is. So I wanna be clear that when I have a question, I don't Google the information. I call the groundwater scientist at the DEC. My question is, have any of you had a phone call with Michael at the DEC? Have any of you reached out to any of the groundwater experts who help evaluate whether this is even possible? Have any of you looked for that level of expertise in evaluating this? Have you reached out to anyone at the DEC?
No.
Of course not. My understanding from them, not my understanding, I was told this directly, it's very common for small town planning board members who are dealing with a project, especially one that's really big that they're not familiar with, to be in contact and to ask the experts at the DEC, what do you think of this? What do you think of the well monitoring program? What do we need to be looking out for? I really don't like that the residents are the ones doing this, and that you all have not reached out, not just to the DEC, but all of the involved agencies who have a stake in this and who can have experts on hand, who can provide you with information that we're going around in circles, months in and months out, talking about, did you reply to my comment or not? You're the only ones in power here. Go to the experts. Hire your own expert hydrologist, ask the DEC, they will be more than happy to talk to you. My issue is that I know from doing the outreach that they have been for months giving this team recommendations about how to do well monitoring, and they are not following them. This is not. Paul talked about science and evidence. I'm pursuing the evidence. I'm not pursuing what developers and consultants who are paid to who can say whatever they want and have no accountability to it. Go and ask actual groundwater experts what they think of the way that they are testing wells and monitoring residents' wells. And you will actually get information that you can base some of your decision making on. So I just want to really encourage you to do that with the DEC, with the DOH, and with the county, with the Army Corps of Engineers. Say, we're dealing with something that's completely out of scale for us, we don't have experience with this, help us out. What do you make of this? Because we're all sitting around acting here like we're reinventing the wheel. There is so much precedence for something like this, and if you just ask experts who understand, they can help you out, and we will it'll just, some of our time will not be wasted anymore. So that is what I am asking of you, and the obvious step is to do a positive CFR, but whatever you do, in order to do your due diligence in reviewing this application, you have to reach out to the involved agencies. And you will find out the information that I have found out, but me saying it doesn't seem to register enough. And so I'm asking you to just get the information yourself so that it just doesn't come from the resident who says the same things over and over again. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Right?
Hello. I'm not going to be very popular a lot of people because I don't mince words.
What?
I don't mince words, okay? And what we found out, Jen said we don't have a lot of answers. We haven't found out very much. Yes, we have. We found out we cannot trust these people. They have lied to us from a fiscal standpoint, which has been proven by a previous tax assessor. Their finances are totally off the wall. They've lied to us environmentally. They, more by omission than commission. You know, they're like politicians. They only tell you what they want to tell you, or what they think you want to hear. You don't get the whole story. And I've seen several companies in my career who've been taken over by private equity and have been gutted and then abandoned. And that's what happens. They've given us bogus information, not only about the water treatment, but it took us 2 months. It's laughable. If you remember, they said 100 cars increased 7%. I said this at one of the other meetings. I'm not great at math, but 7%, are you kidding me? And they don't care about Round Top. They're telling us how it's going to be an environmental project and we're so responsible. They care about the money, period. And they sit here smugly, hiding behind anonymous corporations and attorneys. Well, we're not gonna have it shoved down our throat. That's all I can say. This you know, look what happened with Wyndham and the Wyndham Club. Do you really, their buy-in has gone up to $200,000 on a private, and $9,000 a year to ski. And look what's happened to the local businesses. They've decimated the economy there. Is that what we want here? I don't think so. I don't know how it got through Wyndham at all. But basically, I'm going out of order here, but basically, I've had water problems. I had a whole house filter that I would change every 6 months or so. It had some sand and silt. Now, my well is at the same level that they're drilling. Even last Sunday, I heard a well being pounded. I've got brown water. What's my recourse? What do I do now?
An 800 number in Costa Rica.
And as far as anything else goes, if an environmental impact study was necessary for Hannaford or Wave Farm, why isn't there a positive declaration here? Why isn't there an environmental impact study for a project of this size? This is only slightly bigger than Hannaford. You know, I'll say this to the developers, we are not stupid. You probably think we're a bunch of country bumpkins, but we're not, and you're gonna find out.
Thank you, Dwight. Ed Mossman?
It's no sense talking to these people. I want to clarify a couple things. You said something about the water withdrawal permits. The water withdrawal permits at that time when we applied for ours were only for golf courses. The state only declares that you have to get water withdrawal permits for certain pipe types of businesses. For resort, you don't have to have a water withdrawal permit, just the golf course. Okay?
The what?
The water withdrawal permit.
I'm not
As far
talking
as the
about
Mossman
resort.
family, I understand you people aren't attacking us personally. We do have a vested interest in this community, okay? I'm not prejudiced against this project. I wanna see development in this area. We as the Mossmans wanna see development in this area. As far as my Speedies permit, we've been paying our bill forever. There's a miscommunication in the state. For some reason, they're showing us that we don't have a permit. We do have a permit, we had a permit, we paid it up until the year I sold. Number two, COVID was probably some of my best years of business, okay? We didn't struggle through COVID. We struggled years before that, which all of us businesses do. Sometimes businesses come short of paying a bill, sometimes they pay their bills. It's part of doing business. As far as a financial agreement that I have with Henry, they've been paying their mortgage, okay? For me, as a benefit, if they didn't pay tomorrow when I foreclosed, I'm way ahead of the game because they don't owe me that much anymore. So I just want to clarify that. Everything I've listened to tonight, not just this project, the other projects too, nobody wants growth in this town. Nobody wants a neighbor.
Oh, that's not true.
Doesn't have to be that big. Oh, that's so
You just want a review process.
That's it.
It's not just
And we really don't care if you're paying your mortgage, that's your business.
Right, so you guys brought it up tonight, this young lady brought it up tonight. And us as a family, we wanna see growth. I could have sold the business many times to people that you would not have desired in this area.
Well, we don't desire them.
It doesn't have to be that big.
It's not about desire.
Okay.
It is about the fact that this is not a proper review
All right,
process.
I'm not gonna get in an argument with it, but I just wanted to clarify.
They're not doing what you did.
All right, so,
No, and we did not do what the previous owner who owned it 25 years before us did. When we bought the place in 1967, the following year, my dad gutted it and we expanded.
And you
But
lived in
you're
the
a
community.
family that owned a business. They are a corporation that has to answer to their shareholders, and they don't give a shit about you.
They're not, they're
You
just
did,
people.
and they don't.
Joe, may I ask,
And you did
can
it
we,
responsibly.
can you all set up some sort of, information for residents who are experiencing well issues? Because I know, people ask me all the time, what should I do? And I'm like, well, you could call the DEC, you can call the DOH, but there is no organized at all. People have no idea what to do. And something like, if somebody mentioned back there that for the first time in 35 years, he's got silty water, that is the exact kind of thing that happens when you're doing fractured bedrock drilling. So my question is, I know you all care about whether or not our water is going to go bad. And I know you all care about whether or not families want to live here or not because your water sucks and is unhealthy. And if you cared about that, the first step you should take to engage the community, we're talking about community engagement, is give people a place to report issues with their water. That should have happened months ago, and it should have happened before they started doing their exploratory drilling, because the exploratory drilling is the drilling. They are drilling for the wells that they will ultimately put into their water system. That needs to happen immediately. Please do that for us. Don't leave it to the residents to do it.
is there anybody else who hasn't made comment that would like to make comment?
Just move it right along. Just ignore her.
I applaud everybody for coming over these months and speaking and making really good points for the planning board and everyone else in this community. And I think it's a good process. I'm glad it's not just been done haphazardly, and maybe it should have been opened or done differently, but by the sake of what has been said over the last few months, we've all learned, and we've all had good suggestions made, including to the powers that be. With that being said, as a former chairman and member of the planning board, and before I retired, I can tell you I personally work with everyone on this planning board. And I know that they're gonna, in the end, make the right decision, what's best for all of us, and that we all should keep in mind that we all have rights, including the developers, the taxpayers, and everyone here tonight. So with that being said, I have total faith that this planning board, who I work with and know, will do the right thing for all of us, give them a chance. Thank you.
100%.
I know I don't. And they don't need to be threatened with an Article 78 proceeding, because anyone could sue anybody, as we know.
I know I don't live in the hamlet of Round Top. I know I live down here in Cairo, but I used to live in Round Top for 5 years. I haven't heard anything among the comments or statements that were made with the water. Has anybody thought, even with emergency response, about water supply to put out structure fire if something happens? Has any of that been thought about?
Yep.
I mean, you've got more brush fires, structure fires. I mean, I know Mr. Mossman's one of the chiefs for Round Top. I don't know if that was even thought
I'm
of.
a past chief, and
Okay.
this whole thing has been discussed by the fire company. The fire company at this time has no issues with anything there. There's
Okay.
enough water on property, and there's enough water in the firehouse.
Okay,
I don't need to further.
Yeah, I just want.
I'm not speaking as a chief, I'm speaking as a member.
Yeah.
But this was presented, we had an open discussion as a fire company.
Okay.
And my personal experience as a fire chief for 25 years, this is not an issue.
Okay, I didn't hear none of that comments made, and I just wanted to make sure that was something brought up.
And I agree 100%, just because somebody worked for the business for years, somebody plays golf by the business, somebody comes to my business for years, don't attack these people personally. They are doing the best that they can. And being on that job is not, it's not a boring job. They're doing what they're doing, and they do respect this town and care for this town. Just let the process happen. Let them finish their job. Their thing is to listen to everybody here, take their comments, take your comments, go to the planners, see what they're developing, talk to the engineer that they've hired, and put it all together, and let them come up with their decision at the end. And whether the project passes or not, or however it is, let them do their job. This town has never been steered wrong before, and I don't think it's gonna be steered wrong again.
Look at some things, because it has
What's
to
the time plan? What's your name so I can get it for the record?
Yeah, hi, I'm Robert Downs, I'm a Greene County resident. I just want to ask the question again in a little different way, but, you know, the State Environmental Quality Review Act requires the lead agency to come up within 20 days of a completed application, a determination, negative or positive, in terms of environmental significance. I think, again, this board is sort of misinterpreting the role of an environmental assessment form. It is not to mitigate and determine all the environmental factors and try to figure things out. It is to determine whether this is a significant project or one that is insignificant. And you had 20 days. I mean, granted, there was a first application in December, then there was a public hearing like this. You went back, some of the numbers changed. But I don't see, at least with the new submitted EAF, any blank spaces. I think we've all been kicking around numbers. Through any environmental impact statement, numbers change. The whole point, again, is just to get a ballpark. Is this project going to have significant environmental impact or not? You've taken 7 months not to make a determination. It's, if anything is clear enough that this will have significant impact that requires study, it's that. I think you're in violation of law. Within 20 days in January, you should have come up with a POSDEC determination. So I'd love to hear from the attorney the rationale for why you're prolonging what is an assessment form to determine significance, not to mitigate the project, you know, in this sort of de facto shadow environmental review. You know, we really should have a POSDEC or NEGDEC. But then if indeed you still maintain that it's an incomplete application, then what are we missing? What are you waiting for from the applicant to declare this a completed environmental assessment form?
The 20 days there is basically a guideline, and that's not to say that we ignore it and that we shouldn't follow it, but the fact is that the 20 days is there so that seeker is not used basically as a club or a weapon against an applicant to drag it out and make them basically go away. And so in in this instance, because the application is an evolving and changing each month, you know, we get new information, more information, it's impossible to make. You don't want us to make a decision in a vacuum or with answers that are not, with questions that are not answered. And so that's why we're continuing it for this period of time. If the applicant objects, then we have to proceed, yes, we have to do it. But if they're not objecting, then we are going to continue to review everything that we can.
What are the outstanding issues that would deem a complete application?
I'm not prepared to answer that, I don't know. I didn't come with a checklist of everything that needs to be done. We're still here, we're still going through the application process.
Thank you.
Sir, no, Willie Nelson t-shirt.
I just don't understand.
Sorry, can I just get your name for the record?
Oh, Ray Horton. I don't understand after, I guess, just 2 sessions, what's the cost of issuing a public declaration? Why are you opposed to it? What's costly about it? Wouldn't everybody be better off? Well, maybe not private equity, but wouldn't all the rest of us be better off? We have this information, wouldn't you be better off? What's the cost? Why are you dragging your feet?
The board is completing their review and.
But that's not, I know that's the answer. I'm asking what the cost is. Can you explain to me why it's costly?
I don't believe it is costly for the town.
Cost to the town, to the developer.
To my knowledge, it doesn't cost the town.
Cost it to the developer.
Like, outside of time, but, you know, I don't believe there's a, you know, we're here anyway, so.
Yeah, it's only on water, right?
Steve, my name is Debbie Tobin. I'm a little confused. It sounds to me like the application is complete, but you're still reviewing it. You're saying it's not incomplete. Therefore, what's wrong with having the declaration while you finish reviewing it? So it becomes part of your decision. I have the same question. Why are you dragging your feet?
I don't believe I've ever said the application is complete.
So it's incomplete. And we're
I said
asking
we're in
what
the
you're
midst of a
waiting
review.
for.
They won't say it's incomplete, but they're not saying it's complete.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Did I reflect that correctly?
It's like a positive, negative.
So what is it?
It's like
I don't know.
Well, again, that's a complicated
Let's let
question.
Steve talk.
Yeah. What? Steve?
Steve, you had your hand up earlier?
Yeah, Steve Schulhorn. I tell you what I'm confused about. Before I moved here, I checked out the town and they had a great 10-year plan. They spent a whole bunch of money developing a 10-year plan. It included a huge hydrologic report saying that the water resources are limited in the Round Top area. But the plan was to revitalize the businesses along Main Street and keep Round Top rural residential. That was the basic gist of the whole thing. And it talked about density and 3-acre zoning and all that stuff. Then I read the zoning laws for 2017, and there was a whole section on resort development. And it laid out, based on the 10-year plan, how big a resort should or shouldn't be, and what we should allow and not allow. And then all of a sudden, in the last 5 years, those zoning laws were thrown away, and now here we are arguing about resort development when we had rules in black and white telling everybody how we should develop resorts. And now here we are still arguing about hydrology and saying we need a hydrologist when the town spent thousands of dollars on a hydrology report in the 10-year plan that said resources are limited. So it's pretty obvious that something's going on here that I don't understand. That I moved here, I spent a lot of money moving my family here and buying a house, and now all of a sudden everything's like thrown out the window. It's like all these things we town spent money on just don't exist anymore.
How did it get thrown out? You said it was
I don't know, one of the boards threw that out. It's on the website, the 2017 zoning law is on the website.
Ask
It has a
Joe,
whole
he
section
was on the
on
commission to
resort
overthrow
But
it.
somehow that was thrown out. And the 10-year plan, we already talked about that, we should say you should read what's in the plan, there's a whole hydraulic report in the plan that says water resources are limited in that.
Joe was on the commission that changed it and threw out that plan and redid the new one, so
It's
he
just
can
really
speak to
confusing,
it.
because it sounded so great, it was like, this is where I wanna retire, this is where I wanna spend the rest of my life, these guys know what they're doing, and now all of a sudden, here we are arguing over all this stuff, everything's changed. I really have a bad feeling in my gut from that, because everything was laid out so nice 5 years ago, 2017, 2018, and now all of a sudden, everything's changing from residential resort area to a mega complex with overdeveloped. As far as I'm concerned, twice as many houses there should be built there. And everybody I talk to, no one's against development. We all want development. We want business to be great on Main Street, attract people in, spend their money, and we want people to have second homes in nice areas and small resorts in the mountains. That's what the 10-year plan said. That's what everyone agreed to back before I moved here. And all of a sudden this changes because someone with a whole bunch of money comes in and wants to develop a mega resort. Like, I spoke in the first meeting about this, and cluster development for a big resort is still, it's an acre per house after you take away all the steep slopes and the water features and everything else, and when you do the math and that, it comes out to like 60 houses. So 60 houses and a 2-story lodge would be a great development up there. We're not against development. That would be great, the impact wouldn't be so bad on everyone, but 120 houses in an area that only has 500 houses is just ridiculous. Not enough profit at 60.
Right.
Joe, why was it thrown out in 2017? What was the purpose of the change?
I can't comment as to why the town board made those changes.
You were on the commission to redo the zoning.
This is a public hearing about this application, it's not about.
But it does.
But it affects it.
It's germane to the discussion.
But it can't become an argument where everybody's nasty to each other.
We're not arguing, we're asking
We're just trying to get answers.
Now you're arguing with me.
I'm not
No,
arguing.
I'm telling you.
Just be allowed to.
We're asking for information.
And
I'm not arguing with you.
But that's the very definition of an argument. I say something.
No, we are engaging in a meaningful dialogue.
You see,
There's a big difference between
Just
that
because you
and
don't
an
agree,
argument.
it's not an argument.
And just because one projects its voice doesn't mean it's argument, just making sure you hear it.
I can't answer.
I submit that your definition of an argument is fallacious.
They can't,
All right,
they can't,
I'm done.
Until next month.
they can't define what incomplete and complete is, I mean.
Let's have a quick laugh.
I thank everybody for their comments tonight. The public hearing will be closed until next month.
How you doing, CJ?
I know I saved it. It's an important meeting. I don't like it again, I know it's so bad. I know I keep it.
I think the zoning law is there to protect you. I understand if it's you have to just wait it.
It's like they didn't.
This is not, this is gonna be a
They don't say
high-end
what,
2,000
like they said it was for zoning, breaking the parcel. Well, I don't know that. I'm here running around town.
Well, I think the issue is
See
that
stuff in my yard
they're
that I don't
saying
know.
what this thing
in my
is,
life about.
but there's, right, but it can become anything. It can become, condos, it can become a shopping mall, it can become, it's not so much, they're not.
I've been to.
I was watching you like trying to like catch a real.
I am not a video person, but I'm like putting my phone up there. But I also think it's not on the record, so and that is inappropriate. Yeah, but I have it in mind. And now now that he's saying that, I'm gonna because it's public record. But the fact that they're doing, there's been a lot of talking and sort of like people saying,
It's with this, it's so close. The road's not right. Like I said, I know my issue back in I was just told, hey, there's gonna be something happening. So that's not your property, like, you know, what's happening? I didn't know. I was and there was gonna be a road running down here past my yard. I see flags, big flags in my yard. I don't know what it was.
They're gonna be here. You know.
Yeah, but they didn't say it was for zoning to break the parcel off. So I come in here, I'm thinking they're gonna go across my fucking property. I'm gonna lose it. I see everything that they brought up. I'm sitting there defending my property. I just bought 2 years ago because I love this spot. I don't want nothing to happen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The information's not getting out to some people. And they say this is zoning for a parcel that's being broken up behind you. It's not going to impact your property in this situation. Maybe I would have finished it. Okay, so what's going on? I wanted that to parts. So I felt like I was.
Well, I can tell you, just dealing with it.
I'm slowly involved now that I have property on my name. So now I'm trying to get more than
I mean,
My neighbor had to tear down too.
you know, look at that.
So, I know that. Bring a chair, you came here.
Domingo, nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
Or Jackie.
What kind of definition is this? Okay.
Yeah,
so
after the.
Just watch for the envelope.
When you can get on that, you don't. We're not, again, we're all working.
Let's go. If you hear anything about what's the CJ's gonna let us know what they
All of our hours.
Greene County what?
I grew up here. I thought it was time for that. They didn't want the kids. They didn't want the kids hanging around with themselves.
I just checked, I just what happens when the state starts paying the developer owners to house migrants over here, like, and the crime rate goes up, I think it's more.
Because
What happens
they're
when
going
you
to.
can't go to the park no more because it comes over?
There's so many, all of the third party from, countries. And then they're going to bring a 1%ers clause, which they even stated is going to be dry. So you're mixing two different classes in an area. It's going to be very dangerous for the 4-person.
What happens when you can't go to the wall, the lanes running?
I live next door to it, so what happens when they call my property? They're shooting.
Yeah, like that one guy said,
I'll let my dogs out, and they're going to have a field. I went to this school.
No, it was Ben and Jerry's. Wow. Really good. It's on now.
No, it's hard. I think people are.
She said you're right.